We spoke about ruthless prioritization. In my career, it's about cramming messages on a page, being committed to a message, and the shorter the better. So hard. Now, what does ruthless prioritization mean to you?
For me, ruthless prioritization is more about really focusing in on what marketing is here to do, our job to be done in driving value for the company and our business goals, and then identifying the right levers that we want to lean into and commit to in order for us to drive those goals. So much of good marketing is being able to block out the noise, block out all of the requests from across the business and showing up in all these different places and spaces. That doesn't always serve you well. Marketers who embody ruthless prioritization are the ones that can really demonstrate this is where we need to be and why, and this is what it will serve the business. The outcome of that is then having the platform that you need to then share that singular message.
Today, I spoke with Jennifer Garcia, who runs product marketing at JP Morgan Onyx and has previously held senior marketing roles at Instagram and Google. Jennifer spoke with me about prioritization, but about her specific flavor of prioritization, one that's ruthless. She told me that ruthless prioritization is not just about focusing on what matters the most. More importantly, to be ruthless is to block out the noise and to consciously say no to distractions, projects, ideas, initiatives that deliver actually little value. And in my life and in this podcast, I strive for her version of prioritization. This podcast is called Narrow Lanes because I do believe that in order to create that exceptional value, we have to be both ruthlessly committed to doing fewer things well and also consciously say no and have the courage and conviction to sacrifice those distractions. From Delve Deeper, this is Narrow Lanes.
Jennifer Garcia, welcome to Narrow Lanes.
Thank you.
When you think about your career, whether this is at Google or Instagram, what does it mean to you to assure that we understand as marketers the nuances of who we are as a brand and who is the customer that we're talking to?
This is what makes or breaks marketing. It is truly what determines if a PR initiative or social initiative, achieves virality, or a campaign is something that people actually want to stay for more than 30 seconds and watch. It is so critically important that you are infusing your brand message and what you stand for with a true understanding of what the consumer, is feeling and how they think about your brand. And being able to connect those dots is truly what I think is the magic of marketing. And really strong marketers know how to do that. They know how to take those insights and utilize it to, shape and steer how you build that message. And then there's, I think, other marketers who think they know and just try to kind of take that brand message and apply it and take that spray and pray model. And I mean, every single time it just won't work.
Okay, so how do you know that you captured the nuance?
I mean, you can see how a marketing initiative can organically take off. So yes, you might have a campaign that performed well, but I think you see when a campaign or initiative really works when other people are championing that message or sharing that message, if it sparks conversation. That's when you really know something has worked and if you've achieved that very nuanced message.
So you said pray and spray, and I've heard lately many marketers, and maybe it's just me, use that phrase. Of course, it's such a commonly used phrase, but I think that for a while now, obviously, I can have several go-to-market messages theoretically and see which one plays out the best. And we've talked about social listening, I feel like for a decade now. Like it's not something that we talk about anymore because it's so obvious that I'm socially listening.
Right.
But I also feel that there's ego when it comes to saying, here's what I stand for as a brand. And we get sort of married to these ideas.
Yes.
And we then internalize it. And then sometimes as marketers, it's hard to actually say, well, I'm actually in service to the consumer. And I need to combine my point of view with a deep understanding of what actually resonates. And I think there's a bit of a, at least in my experience, tension between like what I want to stand for and I think who I am because management said so.
Yes.
And we sold that idea to the board versus the reality of the consumer. Have you seen that play out like this? Or is it just sort of my anecdotal experience?
No, I think what you're seeing is 100% correct, at least in my experience. And to be very transparent, we really struggled with this at Instagram when I was there. About 3 years ago, I took on an integrated marketing role, leading our global integrated marketing initiative. And this was a really important time in the company's history. At the time, TikTok had just kind of entered the market and really shown itself as a true competitor. And what we found ourselves in was a situation of there was a message that we really wanted to take to market in being the leaders of culture. But we were seeing that was actually not consistent with how our Instagram users had seen us and what they were going to the platform to be able to do. And this became a very difficult situation in being able to land, campaigns with a message that was truly going to resonate with our users and drive loyalty with them. So I've lived through that struggle. And even with having data in your back pocket and having, all kinds of insights that you can bring to leadership, it doesn't always mean that they listen. And it's shown through in some of the work that we did.
And Leaders of Culture was a top-down, leadership-driven view on who Instagram wanted to be aspirationally.
That's true. Yeah, that's
true.
I mean,
it sounds, from a, not that it matters, but it sounds beautiful and aspirational. But to your point, maybe disconnected?
Disconnected. Yeah.
What did it end up being?
Well, we found that so the brand aspiration was to be the place that pushes culture forward. And what we found was that teens, the everyday user on the platform, wasn't necessarily wanting to be responsible for being a culture carrier.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just wanted to see what was happening amongst their friends or see a post that could spark a conversation with friends. It was much more sort of, I think the value was much more centered around the day-to-day usage than really being that culture driver. People don't really want that pressure, and that's what we saw.
So let's talk about this for a moment, because where this resonates for me is I actually think this is foundational, like deeply, deeply. And again, I know we know, but if we don't do, we don't know. If I think about my experiences, the most frustrating roles I've had is working for companies that, from a marketing perspective, but it isn't just marketing, it's everything. They didn't truly know who they were.
Right.
And it kind of kills your soul after a while. I've been at the startups where we didn't know who we were, and it led to wrong product decisions, wrong financial decisions.
Right.
Even in my own business today, for many years, I would tell my team that we are a digital consultancy when, we use data and technology, but really are a media performance agency. And, sometimes it's hard to sort of give up on these aspirations.
Right.
And just embrace like who I truly am. And maybe that's being authentic, by the way. So you've seen this play out in Instagram. And you were with Google. You were at Nokia. Has this been unique to Instagram? Have you seen this clash between vision in who I am as a brand with who truly consumers want to embrace play out in other places?
I mean, I think that it's a very common tension that lies, is a part of all organizations. I mean, truly understanding how to connect the dots between your company aspiration and where you are going future-wise doesn't always resonate with how people are using the platform or those services today. So there's always that gap.
Yeah.
But some companies that I've worked for, that gap was more apparent than others.
Who's nailed it? What was, out of all the experiences, is there one where you feel like maybe nailed it doesn't just mean that you get it right from the very beginning,
Right.
but you actually, it's also self-reflection and coming to terms with, here's who I am as a brand, and I'm just going to embrace it and be all in on that.
Right. I don't think there was so much of a struggle when I was at Google. I think Google it seemed to really, we really knew our role in the world and how to bring that to life.
Yeah.
We were democratizing this, incredible set of technologies. And we were bringing it to the everyday user, and we were bringing it to enterprises. And I think we really embraced that as our role in the world. And then we had really incredible brand guidelines and I think a foundation for how to bring that to life. So the combination of having the right message in our back pocket and also the tools for executing against that made marketing feel somewhat seamless when I was there.
I would imagine the brand guidelines were a byproduct of the message being clear. Message came first, guidelines came second. Google is huge. It's complicated.
Yeah.
It does many things. How does a company of the size of Google have clarity about the message? That doesn't seem, at least to me, like an easy thing to accomplish.
It's not. But you have incredible marketers who are leading the way. So they're helping to drive that understanding of how to prioritize and how to drive towards that singular message. And there's also operations in place. I remember going to some of the, creative reviews where it was kind of a scary thing to do. Because you knew people were there to really scrutinize the work and really scrutinize the strategy and determine whether or not we were going to get to that singular positioning and that singular message. They were keepers of the brand. And I think that both in having that, we had really strong leaders at the company who understood that vision, but they also understood how to get there and how to operationalize it, allowed us to, across all of the businesses that we, were in the market with, to achieve that one singular kind of vision in the market. It was amazing.
How does having that clear vision translate into decisions that one makes like every day in terms of, I mean, these were all technology companies that you've been with.
Right.
Today, Onyx, it's also a technology company. I remember working for Uvu, this Israeli video chat startup, and it was a great experience. It was also a very frustrating experience. And one of the things that frustrated me as a marketer was disconnect between the message and the actual focus on where engineering resources were spent. Because then you're building something that the market doesn't necessarily need.
Right.
And it's going to fail.
Right.
So much of failure is, I think, about just forgetting about fundamentals. So, you are right now in a product marketing role. Are you truly able to apply your understanding of the market to how the feature set, how the solution is evolving?
That is a very good question because it is truly the thing that I'm trying to unlock for the organization. So just to give you a little bit of history. So I've been at JP Morgan for 7 months. I joined from having primarily big tech experience. I was at Google for 5 years, Meta slash Instagram for 6 years. And all of a sudden, I'm landing in financial services for the first time. And one of the reasons why I was hired and what kind of propelled me to be a part of the organization was that I'm here to be a change driver, a change agent for really starting to kind of evolve the product marketing function so that we can have the insights that we need to shape engineering and product decisions. That doesn't happen today. It's a huge, huge part of where I'm trying to take the organization. And it's a huge shift that I'm trying to make within financial services within a 200-year-old company. Not an easy thing to do. But you talked about like that is the holy grail, I think, of product marketing. And now I'm trying to put some like steps in place for us to be able to achieve that.
Well, and you and I, we obviously had a couple of conversations before this. You said, I quote, "The business has not thought about marketing as a strategic driver." Do you think it's because someone like JP Morgan, everybody knows the brand. I actually don't know that we know, I myself included, what JP Morgan really does, like truly. But I imagine that if you've been around for quite some time as a brand, you have market recognition, people remember your name, they know to think about you. Is that why a brand like that needs to be more attuned to truly marketing being that driver that's strategic?
Well,
or is it Onyx specific?
I think I said that mostly in reflection of where we are with Onyx. So Onyx is its own standalone entity as part of JP Morgan. It's our blockchain initiative. And it's actually been around for, I think, about 10 years. And
wow, since before I even knew personally blockchain existed.
Right, exactly. And so the history of this business unit is that we have been able to build momentum in the market and recognition in the market for, what we do and our product vision very much organically. We've gone to market through speaker ops and engagements and some PR initiatives, but the way the business really has been able to, achieve some, its initial success has been really without marketing. So
it's been all product driven, fair, or engineering driven? Is that a fair statement?
Product driven with shiny moments. And they've done a fantastic job. But now I'm coming in with a much more sophisticated view of what marketing can do for a business. And for me, this is a really important year because I need to prove out the value of marketing.
Yes.
I need to demonstrate and show why we should invest in marketing as a way to continue the success of the business and drive adoption. And so I think a lot of marketers, particularly in tech, who are joining companies who have, seen product market fit through just, organically through product and now come to the table with, a set of tools and a plan. It can be somewhat of an uphill battle, to those leaders who have been a part of that organization and saying, look, we can go above and beyond the success that you've seen if we lean in and invest in marketing. And that's kind of where I am in this journey.
Yeah. Just because I have worked for several startups in Manhattan that were very engineering driven. And I felt like back then that marketing was in some ways a cost center, a byproduct. And in a weird way, engineering was the revenue center, even though it's not.
Right.
But they were the truth tellers when it came to what was needed. And of course, this is a bit of an outdated philosophy. This was years ago. But I do have to imagine that this tension between product, aka engineering, and marketing is there. Is that a fair statement? Do you see there being a tension? Like, is there a cultural change that one has to go through? I think startups experience this, and I think that brands backed by JP Morgan, like Onyx, also experience this.
Right.
Or is this so understood nowadays that this is no longer relevant?
No, it's attention, right? And I think the further you go in your career, the more you are on the front lines of being the champion to bring those initiatives together. And I think that, I've never been at a company where it's just been totally understood what marketing can do for it. So I feel like this is always something that, we need to prove out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if I take a step back and I think about the fact that you are at Onyx, JP Morgan based initiative, and your charter is to showcase, to prove, to create value through marketing as a lens that's strategic, that actually guides where you guys are going. I think back to your career in PR and communications. And again, your journey at Instagram, Google, Nokia. I know we spoke about ruthless prioritization. In my career, that often it's about cramming messages on a page. Being committed, for example, to a message, and the shorter the better, so hard. Now, what does ruthless prioritization mean to you?
Ruthless prioritization can definitely be applied to messaging and driving, we've talked about it earlier, that singular message in market. That's absolutely a part of this. But I actually think, for me, ruthless prioritization is more about the go-to-market approach that you're taking in the market, and really focusing in on what marketing is here to do, our job to be done in driving value for the company and our business goals, and then identifying the right levers that we want to lean into and commit to in order for us to drive those goals. So much of marketing, I think, is like good marketing is being able to block out the noise, block out, all of the requests from across the business and showing up in all these different places and spaces. And that doesn't always serve you well. And it's really, marketers who embody ruthless prioritization and bring that to the organization are the ones that can really demonstrate this is where we need to be and why, and this is what it will serve the business. And that's, for me, then the outcome of that is then having the platform that you need to then share, and communicate that singular message. So messaging is a part of it, but I think that there's more of a foundational approach that is required first in order to understand where and when we drive that message.
So that phrase, ruthless prioritization, has in it ruthless, which is a strong word. I like it, by the way. It's badass.
Yeah.
Right?
It's unapologetic.
Unapologetic, which I
Yes.
think is actually, I like uncompromising. It's strong. And then prioritization, which we know is a word, right, that we all use. Now, how did this happen? Was there a moment when you started using this exact phrase? Was there a situation? Was it just an evolution, right, over the last 15 plus years?
It's not my phrase. So I want to make sure everybody knows that this is not my coined kind of marketing strategy or approach. It's something that I learned. And so just the origin of ruthless prioritization comes from one of the directors that I worked for at Google. And he was really so transformational for me in my career because he truly embodied what ruthless prioritization is all about. There were often where he just didn't answer emails, and because he needed to black out the noise to do the work. And there was a lot of times where he just would clear his calendar, again, unapologetically, because he knew he had to put pen to paper to something and he needed to carve out, the plan to mobilize the team. And I really took notice of that.
Yeah.
It really, for me, I saw how much value that he was able to create by taking that approach. And so, to this day, I mean, 10 plus years later, it truly is what kind of guides me as a marketer and a leader, because I know how valuable it can be.
I find it really hard to clear out my schedule. Like, this almost sounds too good to have that strength of conviction. I mean, that must have you seen any sacrifice, like any negative impact? Was there any cost to that person that you've observed doing that?
Yeah. I don't really know what it might have been like from that stakeholder perspective.
Yeah.
It being at, a certain leadership level, what it had meant for him to actually carve out time to do the thinking, to do the actual work, and the trade-offs that might have, or the trade-offs of that, at that like stakeholder level.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I only saw the benefit. I only saw how he was able to, with such clarity, mobilize not only the team that was reporting under him, but also all of our cross-functional partners, because he truly, set the agenda.
Yeah.
He truly was the one that really helped frame where we all needed to go. And I think that he was able to galvanize the business, the organization, because of that. And it was really powerful.
We were both econ majors. I mean, this to me sounds like this classic Pareto principle, right? 20% drives 80%. And I know in my own personal life, like, I know that. I know that I get dragged into, it's a constant struggle. There's meetings that I feel like I should be there, but I don't need to be there.
Right. Yesterday I had 13 meetings, by the way.
13 meetings.
13.
How many of them were you created value? How about that?
Maybe 2, maybe. But I had 13 meetings on my calendar, and I committed to all of them, which was ridiculous.
I do the same thing. So it's again, I almost feel like it's easier to apply that rule to things that I manage. Like this year, we have very clarity around who we are and what's most important for the team and the client. That translates into messaging, that translates into like operations. But I have to admit, like, I am not doing a great job of ruthlessly prioritizing my time.
Well, for me, because I am trying to bring this mentality to the team that I run, I found it has been somewhat controversial.
Yeah.
I think some of my team members have really been taken aback that I haven't answered every single one of their emails.
I do think that this can be perceived as something that's absolutely negative.
Absolutely.
And maybe, I know I think I feel selfish if I go for a walk for lunch, which I do maybe once a month, by the way. I feel a little guilty when I do that.
Right.
It clears up my head, and we have beautiful trails next to our office, by the way, with beautiful views of the mountains. Like, I have no excuse not to go for a walk.
Right.
And yet, I sit at my desk most days.
Right.
Why is there a stigma around this? Because there is, isn't there? Like, I think there is.
There is. Yes, absolutely.
Any ideas?
I mean, a lot of people get caught in the cycle of being busy and the value of being busy and showing up that way, right? Getting to inbox 0, which I don't even know what that. I've never done that. You should see my inbox. It's insane.
Yeah.
Because I'm taking up.
Most of our inboxes are insane.
Yeah. But I saw what worked.
Yeah.
And every single day, I think about the lessons I learned from Jeremy Cooper at Google.
There we go. Jeremy Cooper.
Yes,
thank
who
you.
you should actually
Thank you,
talk
Jeremy.
to.
We should reach out to you.
You should.
And thank you.
Yes. But I try to emulate that. I try to channel that approach. And while, in the short term, as I'm kind of, building the team and building my rapport with my team, they might not quite understand what I'm here to do and my methods, but they will. They'll get it.
Yeah.
A year from today, when we have achieved the tentpole initiatives that I'm really trying to point us all towards, we will have something to show for ourselves. And that's very different than a bunch of tactics, a bunch of speaker opportunities that we made happen. And so I'm holding true to that.
This is a bit of a segue, but I always tell my team, it's like no one will respect me and us if we aren't modeling behavior, and we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I know it's such a leadership cliche, right? But I feel like often I repeat to my team that we must hold ourselves to a higher standard. What you just shared with me proves that it works.
Right.
That the people who report to us, if they observe that behavior that we think is something to be modeled after,
Yep.
10 years later, it stays with us deeply.
100%. Yep.
So sounds like you should take Jeremy out for lunch one day.
I know. I should.
Probably long overdue. I would imagine
Yes.
all of our lunches with the people that were important to us are long
Yeah.
overdue, right? For all of
Well,
us.
Having that opportunity to work for that level of leadership, it's truly a privilege, and it's so powerful. And I think it is also what motivates me as a leader and someone who manages a team, because if I could have anything when I look back on my career, if there are people who can say, after 10 years of, being a part of my team, that they learn from me and that they somehow are channeling some of the work that I've done or the approach that I took, that means everything.
I mean, it's part of our legacy, right? It's
Right.
part of us marketers. And I really don't care what profession we're in, but I think especially as one matures, there's something really rewarding about being able to pay it forward and sort of like, I mean, as cliche as it sounds, leave, that next generation a little bit better off, whatever that means, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's
Right.
life is short.
Absolutely.
Again, it's all cliches, but it's also just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it's not true.
Yeah. And you have to find that in your everyday, right? Because at the end of the day, we're marketing technology or products,
Yeah.
services, and that might not be that rewarding, but it can be deeply satisfying and rewarding when you are leading a team
Yes.
and you are helping get the, inspiring people to, bring out the very best in them. It's
Well,
amazing.
I agree. I mean, I agree with you. I would say for me right now, thinking about the team and making sure that we do things that keep them engaged while also making sure that we keep clients delighted, delivering the right experiences for everyone. It's complicated, it's fun, and you're dealing with people. Now, back to ruthless prioritization.
Yes. Our theme.
The theme. Is there a situation you can think of where that commitment to prioritizing ruthlessly, where there was a cost to it?
I think that I've found myself in certain organizations that really do,
Not to be named, no details. Yes.
yeah, that really,
Of course, it's not about that.
yeah, but really do champion the tactics, right?
Yeah.
Like
Getting things done. Like,
getting things done, the quick hits in market,
yeah.
the ever present kind of initiatives that might not really move the needle,
Yeah.
but do create presence, with consumers. And I think in the age of social media, you
Yeah.
absolutely have to have that drumbeat. But it can't be everything. And I am actually quite strategic. Like, I think that's probably one of my biggest superpowers is in being able to focus on what matters, strategically understand the value of the like what that would bring to the business, and then commit to it and drive it forward. But I think it is that sacrifice of, having those moments where you're really continuing to show up. And some of that has been a little bit, I would say, misunderstood in terms
Yeah.
of the value that I'm driving. Not everybody sees why you should kind of move towards these tentpole initiatives. And so, yes, I think in my own career growth, I've seen some of the trade-offs play out.
I think, again, ruthless prioritization can be understood in so many different ways. Like my personal experience right now, for example, right? Running a company of 150 people, growing fast. It's very easy to get confused about like what's most important.
Yeah.
So this year we decided that we have a handful of key initiatives that are driven by what the team needs and what the customer needs. So working backwards from those objectives. And what we want to accomplish is actually guided by what we think we can, as a team, actually be capable of, right? So it's within the realm of possibility. It's not just truly aspirational, because it's almost disappointing. Let's do what we actually can commit to. But these are big, complex initiatives, many moving pieces. So that's my perspective is ruthless prioritization it's about big things, but only several.
Yeah.
Hopefully just one if possible. And maybe several smaller things.
Right. Yeah. It can actually, yes, it can be applied at many different altitudes, right? Yeah. But here's an example. I know that evergreen initiatives and speaking engagements is actually a very powerful lever for the business. It's
And for Onyx right now, or also all the experiences you've had?
probably across the board, but Onyx specifically, because we're trying to drive category awareness and new category adoption. And so we just need to, kind of surface our message and reach people in many different spaces. And so some of our thought leadership initiatives through speaker opportunities allow us to do that. However, it's a lot of time. And it can actually, that could be the entirety of my very small team's existence. We could just pour ourselves into that.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is prioritize that, but also find a way where we can be much more efficient for the things that we support in that bucket of work.
Oh, I see.
Versus the tentpole initiatives that we, as the marketing team, really own and drive and deliver. And so what I'm trying to do is mobilize other teams in the background to contribute to that work so that we don't necessarily have to play such an ownership role over it, allowing us, giving us the time and space that we need to then really focus on some of those initiatives that we're saying are the true levers for us.
So you're saying ruthless prioritization isn't just about knowing what truly is most important and saying no to other things. Is it about deprioritizing, or is it actually the art of saying no, saying explicitly, no, we'll not do that?
Or maybe it's about yes and. Maybe it's about saying, yes, we know that these things are important.
And by the way, and is better than but.
I'm learning
I'm
that.
trying to learn that too right now. It's so hard.
Yes, these things are important. Yes, this will create a drumbeat in the market that we know we need to, be able to achieve. And
Yes.
here's what we're going to support. And here's what I think other, parts of the company or our teams should then contribute.
But I also heard you say, and how do we do it? I know I often, I'm just so self-motivated that I tend to go to, and what, even in my role right now, and what can I do to get this priority done, versus, to your point, if I just open myself up to possibilities of, does it have to be not just me?
Right.
And obviously in my role right now, I get to my goals through others. That's how you have to do it when you lead a company. But sometimes maybe it doesn't have to be the team. The team can be also other stakeholders, like a third-party organization, right? Or someone else that I can partner with, lean on, do something with.
Right.
It isn't just about what are the things to ruthlessly prioritize, but also how do I ruthlessly get them done?
Yes.
I just made that up.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I think that's a big part of what this method is. Yeah, so it's not just about saying no.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to just say no. No.
Yes.
But it's also thinking creatively. Okay, I do understand that there is value tied to this work.
Yeah.
We might not be the ones driving it, but here's where other, parts of the organization share these goals. And actually they're well positioned to do this. And I think it's coming to the table with that kind of perspective.
Yeah.
As a way to really mobilize, a go-to-market approach that still has that level of prioritization.
Anything comes to mind from your experience where you were able to not just prioritize what is important, but also how to get it done?
The how?
Yes, where the two came together.
I mean, I'm doing that every single day.
So you are living this.
Yeah, I'm living it.
Can you share something from
So,
Onyx that's not proprietary, that's okay to
yeah.
talk about?
Well, I'm just
Or
something
other
that,
experiences?
yeah. The thing that I love right now as I'm kind of growing in my career and taking on more leadership roles is that I can apply the two pillars of what I think of as some of my superpowers. One in being the strategic architect for
Yes.
the go to market, the message that we need to land and how we get there. But then the other side of what I really love to do, and this is like the other 50% of my role in leading product marketing strategy for payments, is tapping into the operational side. So I really love to examine the entire organization and really understand, how to play to different function strengths in order to achieve a goal. Like, what are the connection points across an organization in order for us to deliver our objectives faster, more efficiently, with better performance?
Yeah.
Like, I love connecting those dots. And in my role today, I have that opportunity. I talked a little bit about being a change agent for the organization. And a big part of it is not only in defining what success is, but it is really about how to get there. And so that's just a snapshot of some of the work that I'm doing right now.
When you were talking,
Yeah.
I think about my role and role of other like leaders that I know, and this ability to have a vision and know what you stand for as a brand. And to me, messaging is just an embodiment of a philosophy that you have, right? Clearly.
Right.
And then to be able to marry that with what I'm actually capable of executing on with the people and the time and the money I have, these constrained resources,
Yeah.
isn't that ultimately sort of the role of a CEO?
I've always taken it more from the perspective of a CMO because I think that's more in like my world. But I think you're right. I think it does kind of mirror the CEO
I
role.
think that a good CEO would look at what you just said, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke, but I actually, and I'm just saying this as someone who's been in the seat for quite some time and who's been on a marketing journey before that, is that's like a dream come true. And I'm really saying this truly authentically because I do think that as marketers, I think are good at like saying, here's the priority for this year, because we have to have a plan. We're forced to define the priority.
Right.
And here's the budget, and here's the team, and here's the technology. People, process, technology, right? Every marketing plan has that. Every good plan has that. But often it's in the context of our own team and what the team can accomplish, right?
Yeah.
People who send emails, the organic, paid, the website, user experience, right? Messaging, creative, all of that. But the moment that you step out of that box and you think about the capacity of the whole team, that seems really cool to me.
Yeah.
To be able to actually do that. Now, what I do find is fascinating is that you, again, if I just take a step back, coming from a communications experience, and now you're almost going really deep into understanding what the organization is capable of, and then I guess you have to go deeper and then to go up again,
Right.
right?
Right. Yep.
Because we are, again, constrained by what we can truly accomplish. It's like Rubik's Cube. It's multifaceted. There are different sides, right? And it's more than just 6 sides.
Right.
I think there are many more sides to the complexity of what we're talking about. And if I was to sum this up, I think ruthless prioritization has to be something that emerges from that. Again, that's my 25 years of just reflection on what we're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Yes.
And it wasn't trying to be a leading question, by the way. It wasn't meant to be a leading question, but that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. Imagine you're talking to a promising director in marketing, right? Somewhere in marketing. And she's asking you for your experience share about your career. And it's obviously going to be something that we just spoke about. What is that sort of foundational experience share or statement? What would you tell her
Yeah.
to remember as she's trying to be successful on her career journey?
I really like that question. For me, and it's very cliche, but apply that growth mentality to your career. Build the foundation, get into the work, take every initiative possible to learn and to experience. Put yourself into uncomfortable situations because you might not see the outcome of that learning experience right away.
Yeah.
You have to be patient with it. You might not sort of, I think it's really easy if you set out to be a growth marketer and you take your entire career doing growth marketing aimed at consumers. Like, you can take that path and you be very successful. But does it bring in that operational expertise? Does it bring in an understanding of how to land a message, how to craft a message? I think taking that multifaceted approach to your career only leads to success. And be, intentional about what those experiences should be and how you want to grow, and apply it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Gather that, like, build that toolbox, because I think when you truly have that substance in your back pocket, you can only succeed. And that's something, I think somewhat intentionally and somewhat unintentionally I've done in my own career, but I'm seeing the value of it. I'm seeing just how it's really giving me the runway that I want to really get to, the place where I want to be. And so that's, how I would answer that question.
I remember before Delph, the moment I would start to feel comfortable in a role, I knew that I either need to change something. And honestly, often it's hard to change it in the context of that role. You're kind of pigeonholed, or there's just things you can't control. And I just had to pull the plug and say, I need to shift gears and go somewhere else because I'm comfortable. Does one of those things resonate? Have you done? As again, I feel like we're sort of reading each other's mind, but I don't mean to ask you leading questions. But
no,
have you felt comfortable in your roles, and that make you want to change, and maybe that meant you had to leave?
Yes, I mean, that is actually what I think has propelled me to take certain opportunities that I had and to move around, the country and even the world. In Sydney, I felt like there was a point where I had mastered my stakeholder relationships, really understood the market, and I was starting to get into, like, I was repeating the playbook. And that's exactly when I knew it was time to leave. From there I went to Google. Again, it was very uncomfortable for me in marketing APIs for the first time.
Yeah.
And working with...
Was it scary a little bit?
Yeah, software, engineers who were like the best of the best, who had such a technical mindset to how they were thinking about the go-to-market. I mean, it was like we were speaking two different languages. And so I had to, like, really learn that on the job, on the spot, in order to, succeed at the company. But I think my biggest kind of, like, pivot that I made that was incredibly uncomfortable was when I went from B2B marketing, where I was for the first 10 plus years, to the consumer side at Instagram, leading a team who were, a team of consumer marketers.
Very few marketers make that shift. Very few.
Very few.
Because it's so different.
It's so different. Yeah, and that was tough. I found myself, again, leading a team of seasoned consumer marketers. I found myself at times where I was, in front of the company with the microphone, talking about the consumer landscape when I didn't really know it. And I was really in that place where I had to, like, fake it to make it. And I don't do that very well.
Don't we all, by the way, in some level.
Right.
We can do it authentically, by the way, too,
right.
I think.
Right. Which I didn't, I think now looking back, or the way I apply that in my job today, because now I'm in blockchain. I've never done blockchain marketing before, but here I am. And I have the courage to ask the questions.
And
I
you know
didn't
what?
have that list.
But that takes maturity.
Yes.
Right? That takes being a grown-up
It does.
to know that it's okay not to know.
Right.
And it's actually a sign of strength.
Right.
Jennifer Garcia, thank you so much for joining me today in Airlines. This was really a pleasure. And thank you for your time.
Yeah. No, thank you. This was really a wonderful conversation. Yeah.